integration that speak to the strength of our alliance and our joint forces. As President Trump has stated, the United States does not seek war, but let me be clear. We will act swiftly and decisively when our people, our partners, or our interests are threatened. Iran should listen to the President of the United States and know that he means it, every word. I want to give congratulations to our Commander-in-Chief. It was an honor to watch him lead last night and throughout, and to our great American warriors on this successful operation. God bless our troops. God bless America. And we give glory to God for his providence and continue to ask for his protection. I turn it over now to the chairman for specifics.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thanks for recognizing all of our folks out there doing our nation's work, and nice to see everybody on this early Sunday morning. Last night, on the President's orders, U.S. Central Command, under the command of General Eric Kurilla, executed Operation Midnight Hammer, a deliberate and precise strike against 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. This was a complex and high-risk mission carried out with exceptional skill and discipline by our joint force. I want to thank every service member, planner, operator that made this mission possible. Their actions reflect the highest standards of the United States Armed Forces. This operation was designed to severely degrade Iran's nuclear weapons infrastructure. It was planned and executed across multiple domains and theaters with coordination that reflects our ability to project power globally with speed and precision at the time and place of our nation's choosing. This was a highly classified mission with very few people in Washington knowing the timing or nature of this plan. I'll refer you to the graphic on the side as I walk you through some of the operational details. At midnight Friday into Saturday morning, a large B-2 strike package comprised of bombers launched from the continental United States. As part of a plan to maintain tactical surprise, part of the package proceeded to the west and into the Pacific as a decoy, a deception effort known only to an extremely small number of planners and key leaders here in Washington and in Tampa. The main strike package, comprised of 7 B-2 Spirit bombers, each with 2 crew members, proceeded quietly to the east with minimal communications. Throughout the 18-hour flight into the target area, the aircraft completed multiple in-flight refuelings. Once over land, the B-2s linked up with escort and support aircraft in a complex, tightly timed maneuver requiring exact synchronization across multiple platforms in a narrow piece of airspace, all done with minimal communications. This type of integration is exactly what our joint force does better than anyone else in the world. At approximately 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time last night, and just prior to the strike package entering Iran, a U.S. submarine in the Central Command area of responsibility launched more than 24 Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles against key surface infrastructure targets at Esfahan. As the Operation Midnight Hammer strike package entered Iranian airspace, the U.S. employed several deception tactics, including decoys, as the 4th and 5th generation aircraft pushed out in front of the strike package at high altitude and high speed, sweeping in front of the package for enemy fighters and surface-to-air missile threats. The strike package was supported by U.S. Strategic Command, U.S. Transportation Command, U.S. Cyber Command, U.S. Space Command, U.S. Space Force, and U.S. European Command. As the strike package approached Fordow and Natanz, the U.S. protection package employed high-speed suppression weapons to ensure safe passage of the strike package, with fighter assets employing preemptive suppressing fires against any potential Iranian surface-to-air threats. We are currently unaware of any shots fired at the U.S. strike package on the way in. At approximately 6:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2:10 a.m. Iran time, the lead B-2 dropped 2 GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator weapons on the first of several aim points at Fordo. As the president stated last night, the remaining bombers then hit their targets as well, with a total of 14 MOPs dropped against 2 nuclear target areas. All 3 Iranian nuclear infrastructure targets were struck between 6:40 p.m. and 7:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, that's about 2:10 in the morning local time in Iran, with the Tomahawk missiles being the last to strike at Esfahan to ensure we retain the element of surprise throughout the operation. Following weapons release, the Midnight Hammer strike package exited Iranian airspace and the package began its return home. We are unaware of any shots fired at the package on the way out. Iran's fighters did not fly, and it appears that Iran's surface-to-air missile systems did not see us. Throughout the mission, we retained the element of surprise. In total, U.S. forces employed approximately 75 precision-guided weapons during this operation. This included, as the president stated last night, 14 30,000-pound GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, marking the first ever operational use of this weapon. I know that battle damage is of great interest. Final battle damage will take some time, but initial battle damage assessments indicate that all 3 sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction. More than 125 U.S. aircraft participated in this mission, including B-2 stealth bombers, multiple flights of 4th and 5th generation fighters, dozens and dozens of air refueling tankers, a guided missile submarine, and a full array of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance aircraft, as well as hundreds of maintenance and operational professionals. As the Secretary said, this was the largest B-2 operational strike in U.S. history and the second longest B-2 mission ever flown, exceeded only by those in the days following 9/11. Well prior to the strike, General Kurilla elevated force protection measures across the region, especially in Iraq, Syria, and the Gulf. Our forces remain on high alert and are fully postured to respond to any Iranian retaliation or proxy attacks, which would be an incredibly poor choice. We will defend ourselves. The safety of our service members and civilians remains our highest priority. This mission demonstrates the unmatched reach, coordination, and capability of the United States military. In just a matter of weeks, this went from strategic planning to global execution. This operation underscores the unmatched capabilities and global reach of the United States military. As the president clearly said last night, no other military in the world could have done this. I join the president and the secretary in being incredibly proud of the air crews, naval forces, cyber operators, planners, and support teams and commanders who made this mission possible. It is their skill, discipline, and teamwork that makes this operation possible. I am particularly proud of our discipline related to operational security, something that was of great concern to the president, the secretary, General Kurilla, and me, and we will continue to focus on this. As we stand here this morning, many assets are still airborne, and we have hundreds deployed. I ask that we keep our warfighters on their way home and our deployed service member in our thoughts. Our joint force remains ready to defend the United States, our troops, and our interests in the region. Thank you very much.
We will take a few questions, Phil.
Me?
Yeah.
So, is regime change off the table, Mr. Secretary? And to the chairman, you said the battle damage assessment is still ongoing.
them plenty of time to continue to come to the table and give up enrichment, give up the nuclear program. But there was I won't say the particular moment, there was certainly a moment in time where he realized that it had to be a certain action taken in order to minimize the threat to us and our troops. Yeah.
General, you say that General Kurilla increased force protection in Iraq, Syria, and Gulf, and those areas. Were they given any advance warning the attacks were coming? And also, Mr. Secretary, when were congressional leaders notified? How long before the attacks took place?
Sir, to your first question, you know, the risk has clearly been rising over the last few weeks in the region. Based on that and not a particular awareness of this operation, we've made smart decisions to minimize the risk to U.S. forces in the region.
So they were given no advance warning?
No, sir.
And congressional?
They were notified after the planes were safely out. Well, we complied with the notification requirements of the War Powers Act.
The attacks, they were notified?
They were immediately thereafter. Yes.
Thank you, Secretary. Two quick questions. Do you believe you completely destroyed Iranian nuclear program? And how about Iranian ballistic missiles? Your ally at Israel always saying that is biggest threat. And second question is very important. What will be your next step if Iran or militias under Iranian influence in the region attack U.S. interests or allies in the region?
And you can chime in on this too, Mr. Chairman. The battle damage assessment is ongoing, but our initial assessment, as the chairman said, is that all of our precision munitions struck where we wanted them to strike and had the desired effect. Which means especially in Fordo, which was the primary target here, we believe we achieved destruction of capabilities there. Ultimately, wherever it may be, whether it's in Iraq or Syria or bases in the Gulf, as the president said, it would be as the chairman said, it would be a very bad idea for Iran or its proxies to attempt to attack American forces. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Regarding retaliations, Iran and North Korea are cooperating on nuclear and missile development. Do you think there is a possibility that Iran, North Korea, and the other forces, such as China, will join forces to retaliate against the United States?
Well, unfortunately, because of the policies under the previous administration, we drove those countries together. And ultimately, that creates a challenging environment. For this particular operation, the focus is on Iran and Iranian nuclear capabilities. That's our focus here, is to not just say that they can't have, but President Trump has said from over 20 years, frankly, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And ultimately, he decided this is the moment, given their stonewalling, when direct military action had to be taken to prevent that from happening. Yes.
Thank you very much. General Kane, I understand OPSEC, I respect OPSEC. Can you say at all what security procedures are being taken to protect U.S. troops in Iraq and elsewhere in the Middle East? And Secretary Hegseth, as a global war on terrorism veteran, what do you say to veterans who may be concerned the U.S. is getting into another open-ended war in the Middle East over weapons of mass destruction?
Thanks, sir, for the question. I won't comment on what force protection measures are being taken in the region. What I will say is we're being proactive and not reactive, and being very thoughtful about ensuring that we do all that we can to protect our forces out there.
And I would just say, as the president has directed and made clear, this is most certainly not open-ended. It doesn't mean it limits our ability to respond. We will respond if necessary. The most powerful military in the world is postured and prepared to defend our people. But what the president gave us, as I said, was a focused, powerful, and clear mission on the destruction of Iranian nuclear capabilities. Those were the targets. That's what was struck. That's what was overwhelming. That's what was overwhelming. That's what the Iranian regime needs to understand, as the president put out last night. He wants peace. There needs to be a negotiated settlement here. We ultimately demonstrated that Iran cannot have a nuclear capability. That is a very clear mission set on this operation. Yes. Hold on. Yes, right there.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Question for the Secretary and the Chairman. How was this strike coordinated with the Israelis on a strategic level, militarily, and on a tactical level? Was there any direct Israeli military participation in this operation?
Well, I would say certainly Israel had an incredible military success, especially at the beginning and ongoing, in degrading Iranian capabilities, in degrading Iranian launchers, MRBMs. It's been incredible to watch what our ally Israel has been able to do. And there certainly have been conversations. I mean, General Kurilla at CENTCOM has worked closely in the defense of Israel for many years. And part of this operation was the defense of Israel and the ongoing defense of Israel. But as it pertains to this strike, this was U.S. operated and U.S. led.
We took advantage of some of the preparatory work that's been done over the past week and a half in terms of axis of approach. I won't get into the particulars, but as the Secretary said, it was a U.S. strike. We made sure we were not in the same piece of airspace and sky. Aside from that, that was the extent of it.
We'll take a couple more. Yeah, right there.
Question to the Secretary first. Are you concerned whatsoever now about the reaction from U.S. allies given the strike, particularly those in the Gulf? And to the Chairman, if I may, I understand you don't want to speak to specific assets and force protection measures, but do you anticipate at least having to bring in any further assets from other theaters to aid in force protection over the coming days?
We certainly understand the challenges of allies in the region, and we have been respectful and in working in collaboration with them as it pertains to basing and sensitivities there. Ultimately, they've got a lot of assets and people in those locations also where American troops are co-located. So that's a consideration of ours. We've been in close consultation with them, and we appreciate the support that we have got.
Thanks for the question on sort of the global picture. And as you know, that's one of my jobs, is to look globally at the entire range of challenges. We are always carefully considering our force posture around the world.
Now we have guests joining us for this discussion on this story. Yossi Cooper-Wasser, he's Israeli intelligence and security expert. Yossi, what can you tell us about the current situation and reaction of Israeli people and government regarding U.S.'s statement, and the first statement saying that U.S. attacked or joined the attack not for regime change in Iran, while Iranian last week we saw that Netanyahu issued a statement asking Iranian people for uprising, and it seemed like they were pushing for an uprising. However, now we know that from U.S. Defense Ministry that this attack was not for uprising. What do you make of this situation?
Well, first of all, people in Israel are very satisfied and happy with what happened this night, because it's a severe blow to the Iranian ambition to have the capability to produce nuclear weapons and to actually produce them. And with the Fordow attack, and with Natanz attack, and with Isfahan attack, the capability of the Iranians to have a nuclear project has become much less possible. And that's a very important step forward for the security and stability of Israel, of the Middle East entirely, and of the world, I would say. So we are very happy with that. Now, regarding regime change, we never put regime change as a goal of our operation, and we have no disagreement with the Americans on that. We all would like to see a regime change in Iran, because we understand that the problems stem primarily from the kind of regime they have, that is determined to spread this fanaticism and radical ideology all over the world. But we understand that this is up to the Iranian people to bring about such a change. We can weaken the regime by the attacks we carry out, by depriving it from its proxies, as we did during the last year and a half, by weakening its capability to produce nuclear weapons. That is the crown jewel of their activities, instead of carrying for their people, they put all their money, in spite of the economic difficulties, in this nuclear project. But on top of that, it's up to the Iranian people to rise up and do what they need to do if they want to do it, if they are courageous enough to do it, in order to topple the regime. We understand how difficult it is and how dangerous it is, so we don't judge them, just try to see if they're going to do that or not. If not, we can prevent Iran from becoming a problem to the Middle East by the steps we take.
And Yossi, building on that from an intelligence standpoint, how coordinated was this strike between US and Israel according to you?
Well, you know, the Americans were hesitating whether to carry out this attack or not. They preferred, they tried the diplomatic way, and they conducted negotiations with the Iranians for 60 days. As they said right from the beginning, that they extend the offer to the Iranians that remains valid until for 60 days. On the 61st day, we took action because it was clear that the Iranians refused to move and show any flexibility on the diplomatic way, and that's when we moved. And even after that, the Americans still preferred the diplomatic way and said, okay, now that the Israelis took action, maybe this is going to convince the Iranians to be more forthcoming and more flexible. And there was an initiative to try to convince the Iranians to show flexibility in the diplomatic negotiations they conducted with the European foreign ministers. But it turned out that even then, even after the Israeli attack, the Iranians remained very stubborn, insisted on having the capability to enrich uranium on their soil, and refusing to do what the Americans offered them. And that's where the Americans decided that they should, there's no other way but to carry out an attack in order to make sure that the efforts of Israel to destroy the Iranian nuclear project are going to be successful. And that part, the military part, was of course well coordinated, because we are operating over Iran with our Air Force. So it was extremely important to make sure that there was deconfliction, and there was support in understanding the intelligence picture. And in a way, we paved the road for the Americans to carry out this operation. They would have done it anyhow, but we helped them know that they are safe on their flight, because we took care of the Iranian air defenses well in advance. So the Americans could have carried their attack without worrying about the Iranian air defenses. And they could have done it anyhow, even without us, because they used the stealth bomber for that purpose.
And Yossi, from what we know of the American bases in Middle East, as American bases are now in a dangerous situation, or not situation, but a dangerous place given the location of their bases. Do you think that they are acting as a buffer for Israel, or is it more dangerous as they can be attacked, or Iran can carry attack on those bases, according to you?
First of all, they're not a buffer, because the Iranians keep launching missiles in our direction, regardless of what they're going to do or not do vis-a-vis the American bases in the region. And yes, the American bases might be a target for Iranian missile attack. And there are all kinds of other things that the Iranians can do, both on the military level and on the political level, diplomatic level. They threaten to do all kinds of things regarding their commitment to the NPT. This is ridiculous, because even though they were committed to the NPT, they breached the NPT all the time, lying to the world about the real intention of their military nuclear program. But they consider all kinds of steps, and including hitting the American bases. At least the American bases, the American soldiers in the Middle East know that they are in dangerous situation, and they definitely took the necessary steps in order to be better prepared to absorb such an attack.
And Yossi, looking back at the recent strikes on 3 locations, nuclear sites in Iran, do you think that these attacks on those sites has set back Iran's nuclear capability, or did it increase the chances of counterattack towards Israel?
Well, they definitely increased the chances of counterattack against Israel. We are under attack for 8.5 days already. But I think that they did at the same time to set the Iranian nuclear project back considerably. It's hard to say how much exactly, but considerably for sure. And it's first of all, a lot of damage has been done to the facilities that are critical for this project. Both the enrichment facilities and the conversion facilities were severely hit, and we hit also the scientists that lead this project, and we hit some of the locations that are part of the weaponization project. So a lot of damage was done, and we hit also the centrifuge production facilities. A lot of damage was done to the Iranian nuclear program. But it's beyond just the damage done. We crossed the Rubicon together with the Americans. Now we crossed the Rubicon that says that if the Iranians insist on moving forward towards having a nuclear capability, there's going to be a military attack to prevent that. And we did it a couple of days ago, and the Americans did it last night. And this is a message that the Iranians cannot ignore, because if they're going to try again to build a nuclear project, there's going to be a military action well before we are not going to wait for the last minute. This time we waited 20 years until it was really the last minute that we took action. But in the future, it's us and the Americans are not going to wait for the Iranians to move all this way up.
And Yossi, looking back at what Araghchi, Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi said in his talks in Turkey, that Iran never left the negotiation table. And what is your take on that?
Well, they never left the negotiation table, but they said what they said at the negotiation table was not leading anywhere. They refused to give up enrichment on Iranian soil. They refused to give up a lot of other elements. There are 23 issues that were discussed, and all of them they presented positions that are unacceptable. And they insisted on having the capability to produce nuclear weapons. That's what they wanted. And this is unacceptable. And they stayed at the table, but they said things that are unacceptable. That's the problem. It's the positions that's the problem, not the presence or lack of presence. And the United States gave the Iranians ample time to change its position, and it gave it all the warnings necessary to know that if they refuse to change their position, there will be consequences, severe consequences. The Americans didn't hide that from the Iranians, and not from the entire world. It was said repeatedly by the Americans, and the Iranians nevertheless preferred to ignore the warnings.
And Yossi, now moving to a bigger picture, how do you respond to Turkey's statement on mediating efforts, and is Turkey positioning itself as a balancing power or future mediator in this crisis? And can Israel and US as well as Iran trust Turkey as a mediator, and looking at its membership to NATO and strategic ties to both West and the Middle East?
Look, we don't have a lot of trust in Turkey these days, because the president of Turkey is speaking about Israel in a way that is totally unacceptable. We cannot trust Erdogan to be a mediator. That said, there's no need for mediation. The European Union, the 3 European foreign ministers of the United Kingdom, France and Germany are serving as mediators. We don't need another mediator. It's just what needs to happen is to have the Iranians accept the deal that was presented to them by the Americans. That does not happen. That is the problem, not the lack of mediation. There were even direct talks between the Americans and the Iranians. They don't need a mediator at all. There was a mediator. The Omani foreign minister was going back and forth. But we don't need a mediator. We need an Iranian decision. That's what's needed. An Iranian decision to give up the nuclear project. That's what's needed.
Now, looking at France, Macron has also issued a statement saying that I don't recall what he said, but what do you think France's position is like about Europe's strategic anxiety over the expanding situation of Iran and Israel?
I think that French and some of the Europeans are unhappy with what we did because they believe that priority should be given to the diplomatic way, and any conditions the diplomatic way should not be abandoned. And we are not in a disagreement on that. Priority was given to the diplomatic way, but the French refused to accept is that the diplomatic way failed. That's the sad news. The diplomatic option failed, and that's why we had to go to the military option. If the diplomatic option would have succeeded, we would be very happy to see this entire problem solved through diplomatic means. It would have been much better, even from an Israeli point of view, even though we don't trust the Iranians. And that's why we said that the diplomatic solution should be based on real verification and the ability of the monitoring body to conduct verification anytime, anywhere, without any conditions. But the Iranians refused to that, refused everything. They just said, we are not really ready to move on any issue, especially not on enrichment. And that was the reason that the negotiations failed. I think that the French had an opportunity to witness that firsthand when their Minister of Foreign Affairs conducted negotiations with the Iranians this last, I think it was Friday, and to no avail. There was no progress. And the Iranians stick to their stubborn position, and that's it. And I must say that the German chancellor adopted a different opinion. He said, well, what's happening is that Israel is doing the dirty job that we don't do. And we should thank Israel for doing that, because somebody has to deal with the Iranian nuclear project. Somebody has to make sure that Iran doesn't have a nuclear project. And that is designed to produce nuclear weapons. And since we are not going to do it, and nobody else is going to do it, it's good that the Israelis do it. Somebody has to do it.
And now we are also joined by Dr. Sergei Dvoryanov. He's a president of IDC Russia and director at WHD International Board, joining us live from Russia. Dr. Sergei, do you believe the U.S. strikes on these 3 nuclear sites have effectively set back Iran's nuclear program, or will they accelerate retaliation, according to you?
First of all, I want to tell that we are right now in the middle of the war of civilizations. And we can see that the Middle East always was a very complicated region. Just 2 days back, I saw a very funny poster where 2 images, national leader of India and Xi Jinping, leader of China. And in the poster, they suggest, Chinese leader suggests and advise to all Chinese leave Israel. And Sri Narendra Modi suggests to all Indian leave Iran. We can see that, of course, this attack of America to Iran also involve China, because China already replied they're not happy with this action, because Iran supply a lot of oil to Iran and to China, and China depends of the economy depends of Iranian oil. Also, in the same time, we can see that right now that is a question of unity of the nation, unity of Iranian nation and unity of Israeli nation as well. Because last many years, maybe some tens and tens years, Iran was under the sanctions of Western countries, and they was survived during this history, and they become smartest nation in the world. And we can see that they was ready for such kind of activity for this war, and is only one first step. And of course, they have their own strategy, how not only to be survived, but also how they can they can bring their nation to victory. For my opinion, Donald Trump, because he's peacemaker, basically, he did something, some formality. This attack is not so strong, I can see. It's just a formality. And after that, he can start to negotiate with peace, like he did between Pakistan and India. And he can repeat his success, his huge success to be a peacemaker. But still, big challenger exists because regarding Israel, they don't want to stop. Israel doesn't want to stop this war. They want completely change the regime in Iran. That is a big challenger, but at the same time, we can see that this attack gave to us opposite results. Iranian nation right now in the unity, and they united themselves. And of course, this conflict, we can expect some deep escalation.
And I've already got opinion of Yossi for this question, but Dr. Sergey, how do you respond to Turkey's statement that the strike could escalate into global war? And is Turkey positioning itself as a balancing power here or a future mediator in this crisis? And would you either trust it, or would either side trust it, given its NATO membership as well as strategic ties to both the West as well as the Middle East?
Yes, I completely agree that is a big challenger to all of us, to humanity, that we can see that we cannot dialogue of civilization. We're in the middle of the war. And first of all, we can see that right now, this Iranian and Israel conflict increasing the unity in Muslim countries, in Muslim world, because it touched to their face, to the most influence our spiritual identity, because our spiritual identity is the main reason and main motivation of our action. Of course, it's a very sensitive question. And Turkey, they just want not support Iran, they want to support Islamic position of Islamic world. It's a solidarity to Iran. And of course, it's very complicated. And I believe that Donald Trump, he has some peacemaking potential. And after this action, we can start with some negotiation, but everything depends on the role and position of Israel as well. What will be their step, and what it will be their reply for the next upcoming soon, because everybody talking about this upcoming soon reply of Iran. What we can expect in future. It will be escalation or peacemaking dialogue. Nobody knows.
Dr. Sergey, you will stay with us. Now I move on to our guest, Yossi. Yossi, can the UN Security Council act as a meaningful entity, and now that Iran has demanded an emergency session, or will it split along predictable lines according to you? And what would de-escalation look like from an Israeli security perspective?
Well, I have limited expectations from the UN Security Council. It's full with countries that show no responsibility, so you can't expect much from them. But I think that the Americans and the Europeans can move forward and try to bring about some progress towards a solution of this conflict. And Russia can play a role as well. Russia can play a role as well if she decides so. Putin is going to meet Archie. Sorry, Putin is going to meet Archie today, and I'm sure he's in touch with Trump, with President Trump, and he might try to convince the Iranians to accept the deal presented to them by the Americans. This is the way out of this conflict. If the Iranians accept the deal, then we shall be able to establish some sort of tranquility, and this is going to be in the benefit of everybody in the region and beyond. But if the Iranians keep pushing for the moon and trying to keep the capability to produce nuclear weapons, there's not going to be a solution. There's not going to be an end to this conflict. And the only way to handle that would be through military means. We shall have to keep hitting the Iranian capabilities until they don't have any more capabilities left.
Thank you, Yossi. You will stay with us. Now we have a breaking news from Iran, where sources have told us that explosions have been heard in and around the town of Bushehr, which houses Iran's most important nuclear facility. According to the Sharg news outlet in Iran, a big explosion was heard in Iran's central Yazd province, where air defenses have now been activated. The UN's nuclear watchdog IAEA has previously warned that striking the Bushehr plant would trigger a very high release of radioactivity. Now we go back to our discussion. Yossi, what is your take on this current breaking news that regardless of the IAEA's warning, there has been strike on Bushehr nuclear city or surroundings of it?
Well, I don't believe Israel took any step against the Bushehr nuclear power plant. It's a civilian project, and it's operated by the Russians, by Rosatom, and I don't think that Israel carried out anything against the power plant. We do attack, we have already attacked several military targets in the city of and the surrounding of Bushehr. There are facilities over there that produce drones that are launched towards us. There are facilities that host ballistic missiles. There are all kinds of facilities in the vicinity of Bushehr, and that could be the target of some Israeli attack. I'm, of course, not familiar with the exact details of current attacks, but that could be the case. There's no chance in the world that Israel attacked the Bushehr power plant. So IAEA can rest assured that they don't have to worry.
And now, Dr. Sergey, Yossi has told us that it's less likely that Israel has hit this plant, but according to you, if confirmed, what would these explosions mean in the context of this conflict?
I think it's a big disaster and a very painful situation for all of us. We should negotiate with a peace, and first of all, it's a question of spiritual education, because this spiritual identity right now in these neighbor nations like Israel and Iran completely increasing some hateness mood and some aggressive mood to action. We should educate people that dialogue is very, very possible. And future, of course, I believe that future can be like a dialogue of all nations and civilization. And this particular situation right now, we can see involved a lot of interests of different countries. Its economy, its level of ambitions, its level of political career, its level of proxy war. But finally, if we'll start real peacemaking dialogue, we should involve some scientists we should involve some spiritual leaders, which can take responsibility that in 21st century, with nuclear weapons, we should not play so badly with countries. And definitely, I completely believe that role of Donald Trump and our national leader and their particular understanding of each other can play main role to bring peace to Middle East. I completely believe this, that we can bring peace to Middle East, and we can definitely prepare some roadmap how we will put to these countries, Iran and Israel, to the table of peacemaking dialogue. I completely believe to this, like a peacemaker.
Dr. Sergey and Sir Yossi, you will stay with us. We have a breaking news. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has called for urgent de-escalation following US strikes on Iran, stressing that Iran must never obtain a nuclear weapon. Speaking after engaging with global leaders, Starmer said the threat from Iran's nuclear program remains serious but urged diplomacy to prevail. He added that the UK is taking all necessary steps to protect its interests while working to bring all sides back to the negotiating table.
Well, we've long had concerns about the Iranian nuclear program and been very clear that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. The US has now taken action to alleviate that threat. It is important that we now de-escalate the situation, stabilize the region, and get the parties back around the table to negotiate. And I've been speaking with international leaders this morning to that.
Now moving back to our discussion, Yossi, many countries in the region, including US allies as well as Keir Starmer, have commented asking for de-escalation. And looking back at the Biden administration, where he spoke of diplomacy first, has this strategy been abandoned now for this particular situation between Iran and Israel, according to you?
Well, it has been abandoned for a short period of time for military activity to make sure that Iran doesn't have the capability to produce nuclear weapons. That is a short while. I hope that this would lead the Iranians to change their policy. As long as they don't change their policy, as long as they call for the destruction of the state of Israel and its annihilation through all kinds of means, including the use of the deadliest weapons, then we have to keep putting pressure on them and deprive them of the capability to do that. But I hope that following the American attack, the Iranians are going to change their mind and we shall be able to move forward. That's my hope. Anyhow, I'll have to leave now because I'm scheduled to be on another program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yossi Cooper-Wasser and Dr. Sergey Dvoryanov for joining us and bringing your expertise for our discussion. Now we move on to our next news. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has confirmed that the bodies of 3 Israeli hostages, Yonatan Samerano, Ofra Kedar, and Staff Sergeant Shai Levinson, were recovered from the Gaza Strip in a military operation. The Israeli Defense Forces say they have retrieved the remains of 8 hostages so far this month as part of an ongoing campaign to bring abductees from home. Kedar, aged 71, was killed at a kibbutz before her body was taken into Gaza, while 19-year-old Levinson died fighting Hamas on October 7th. Samerano's family confirmed his body's recovery. The Hostages and Missing Families Forum expressed grief but also hope, emphasizing that Israel's mission continues until all hostages, both living and deceased, are returned. The announcement comes amid heightened military operations that killed around 1,200 people and took more than 250 hostages, as per Israeli authorities. The conflict has resulted in heavy casualties, including over 54,000 reported deaths in Gaza. Well, that's all we have time for. We will continue to bring more news updates from around the world.